If someone say you're a so-called banker or some kind of collection agency, whatever you claim to be, doesn't matter, and you move a court for a foreclosure, right? Mm-hmm. If any of you have done any research in any of county records anywhere else, you'll see 90% of all your foreclosures are called abandonments. Yeah. It ain't called lack of payment, it's called abandonments. Mm-hmm. You better get out of your house next Tuesday. Oh, all right. Mm-mm. You just abandon your estate. Mm. Then they come in and do what is called an adverse possession. Are we clear? Clear. Are we clear? Yeah.
Clear.
All right. Now, so before it gets like that and the posses come around and start trash, you do rebuttals and estoppels on the record. Are we clear?
Clear. Clear.
Because you're telling them that you're not abandoning your estate.
That's right.
Are we clear?
Clear.
Yeah. Now let's read this all the way through and then we'll talk some more. All right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to read this non-stop, then we'll just talk on some points, all right? All right. So, pursuant to Pennsylvania Commonwealth's appellate rules of procedure, so these are rules because what has happened, this property was already put in foreclosure and was supposed to be moved on actually past month. All right? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, so this is presently in operation in the pseudo court system. All right? So James Warren Bay, now such a free national, you see? Proper person, so you see a small case, capitalize a small case, right? The living sentient man appellant, so this is an appeal, right? And beneficiary, right? Of the James Warren estate. See, this is an ex-rel position, but you're claiming, you gotta claim your estate. See, because what you're abandoning, when you make a different argument, you've just abandoned the argument to the estate. And most people start saying, well, I got a letter, and they told me, no, they was talking to the estate. You didn't notice that was written in all capital letters? Mm-hmm. Well, if you're incompetent, see, so if you don't put an estoppel and make this distinction between the difference, it's assumed, although they know it's a fraud. Because they've already put you on the back side of the ledger anyway. You see the point? Mm-hmm. And they're not the holder in due course because they do not have the original mortgage and the promissory note because it's on the damn stock market with multiple signatures on it. That's why they won't produce it. So if they can't produce it, they also don't have an argument. The court has no business issuing a what? A writ of execution when the persons or persons claiming to be the holders in due course clearly are not the holders in due course. Are we clear?
Clear.
Are we clear?
Clear.
Now, the point is, I'm going to read this, but I want to make it very clear to you. The point is they've generated as a fungible instrument as the asset being the promissory note. You can tell them, instruct them as a beneficiary to take the finance that was made off of that fungible stock and offset the alleged debt. You allow them to do that. Because you've already paid it over with your labor that's measured by the bookkeeping. Because it's not money. Mm-hmm. That's called offset. That's why, like in the congressional records, they tell you that you can't pay a debt with currency or any instruments that's not backed by gold or silver. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it only can be discharged or set off. It doesn't disappear. And so what have they done? They've enslaved the nationals and call it the national debt. Yeah. Come on now. And this is why the national debt is so high. Because it's actually against your estates. Now, so what happens if you're not Moorish American? Can you claim the estate?
Nope.
Because that's what it is. It's occupation of Morocco. This is the problem that Europeans, freedmen's groups are having by trying to claim sovereign right to lands and estates. Because they're Europeans. They ain't white people. They're Europeans. See how this stuff is getting really corrupted? In other words, the corruption is catching everybody. The corruption is catching everybody. But it's incumbent upon the true beneficiaries to start speaking up, because failure of you to speak up keeps everything in disorder. Are we clear? Now you understand the divine warning where the prophet said, these words and names that you use that delude to slavery must be removed from the earth to stop these earthquakes and storms and stuff, because Mother Earth is going to cleanse it. You either fix it or she's going to fix it.
Yep.
And when she fixes it,
It ain't gonna be pretty.
it's usually not a happy outcome. But remember, she gives you opportunity,
Yes.
an opportunity to fix. Because when the cosmic mother, we call Allah, spanks you, you can't never say that you weren't told.
That's right.
Multiple times. Because when she comes out the woods, because remember, it's not personalization. Yeah, but I love the Lord. She ain't hearing that. I love Jesusness. And, got any other sandwiches? You know, I know Allah, pray, mace, light up. She don't recognize none of that. Merit only. And if you're on the wrong side of them scales,
You
the
toast.
cookies.
Toast.
That's why the symbol of Adul, or the sword of justice, is symbolic. Be on the handle side if you can,
That's right.
because it's a two-edged sword.
That's right.
I missed them that way. Crew cut. But so I'm gonna read this through, but I need you all to understand these principles of operations, how they're operating. Because if you understand what they're doing, you can make the argument. You just need to really comprehend what's happening.
That's
all right?
it. That's it.
So James Warren Beatty, a living sentient man, appellant and beneficiary of James Warren estate, moves for emergency appeals in all matters involving the misrepresentations presented before the administrators of the court. You notice he didn't say judges? Because it's an estate. They're administrative clerks. Now, if you want to call them judges, you just assign them. You understand? You need to know what you're dealing with. By Mr. Sloan. Now, Mr. Sloan is president of Wells Fargo.
Timothy J.
And then you can use whatever, who is his name?
Timothy J.
Timothy J. Sloan.
That's his name.
Timothy J. Sloan. All right, so Timothy J. Sloan is the MC, CEO, Master Ceremonies, head guy, presider, whatever, of Wells Fargo. So when you talk about Wells Fargo, you're talking about Mr. Sloan. Now notice how we put Mr. Sloan in front of the corporate entity. You're not arguing with Wells Fargo. Why? It can't talk. It's a piece of paper registered somewhere as a private corporation for profit.
Just like Commonwealth.
So you can talk to a living man or woman. Failure to do so, which means you waive your right to what? To face your accuser. I'd rather talk to Santa Claus because I didn't get a bike. Oh, go ahead, keep it up. And you keep losing. Anyway, so Mr. Sloan doing business as Wells Fargo Bank and its associated party, World Savings Bank. So immediately, by their own entry into the court, they enter clearly third-party interloper. Now, so if they sold the contract to World Bank, what they gonna make an argument?
Right. Islam.
They're out of the picture. That's like me selling you a car. You understand? I'm selling you a car, and you trying to collect from him, from Brother Soul, and I'm sitting up here arguing with you. Yeah, because she could Soul and give her $5.50 last month. Well, I sold the car. I have no interest, right? So Wells Fargo has no interest. Why are they on them damn court papers? Then you got a third-party interloper with whom you have no contract.
That's right.
Because they already got paid whatever agreement they had with Wells Fargo. They ain't got that one thing to do with you.
That's right.
What is the rule of third-party interloper? No contract, no claim.
Right.
Isn't that the law?
That's right.
What happens with most people that never make that argument, do they?
Nope.
Well, see, last week I gave 550 cents and see because of it. You start arguing them out and all this. You're agreeing that their debt exists. It doesn't. It's theirs, not yours.
Islam. Does the same principle hold true for, say, people who may have had, I don't know, say, credit card?
Exactly.
Credit card debt, it's sold to
It's
a...
still against your estate. Exactly. Third party interloper, same thing. See,
when the third party interloper decides that it's going to take you to court and serve you with papers and you don't have a copy.
You let them do all that, and then charge them an allodial cost schedule for the time that you spend messing with them. Let me explain something to you all so you all understand this. You know, you hear about companies all around the place talking about clean your credit up.
Yes.
You know how they do it? The principle that they're working on is exactly what I'm telling you right here. Third party interloper has no claim. They ain't got no damn business moving to court. But because corruption it is allowed, they be paying people off. But in law, they already know it's a fraud. What happens, people keep failing to say it themselves. And then by them being considered state property, the awards of the state, so the state speaks for them. Then if you hire a barrister, he's a bounty hunter, he's with a tie, you just paid the bounty hunter to deliver you.
Yes.
And this is what keeps happening to people. Are we clear?
Clear. Definitely clear.
So this is what keeps happening. So let's read this out. So, Mr. Sloan doing business as Wells Fargo Bank and its associated party, World Savings Bank. That's their associate party, ain't your associate. That's a private deal they made. What they got to do with you? Of an instrument, a surety that they put against you, that's against your estate. That's what generated the finance as a fungible instrument on the stock market. Did they send you any checks?
Hell no.
No.
So if they generate finance off you as a surety, how's it that you owe them? You see the issue? All right, this is back to what we talked about. Once you understand the principle, you can draft your own rates.
Islam.
You just need to comprehend fundamentals, that's all.
Yes.
So World Savings Bank, hereafter referred to as Mr. Sloan. So now, Mr. Sloan is Wells Fargo as well as World, Savings Bank. See, so now when you say Mr. Sloan, since he's operating for them, he's one driving the bus.
Yep.
All right.
You gotta take the hit.
At Alia, and that means all your club members. All right. Mr. Sloan and Alia are declared to not possess rightful trusteeship in any and all matters related to the organic land, nor to 11 Delancey Place and all accoutrements associated to it, being a part of the James Warren estate, pending revocation of signature by the rightful beneficiary, James Warren Bey. So now you just created an estoppel. So even if it's not done, you just let them know from the tribunal, I'm removing my signature. Now, of course, removing my signature, y'all got to produce the evidence that you moved this case with, don't you? Isn't it called evidence? Well, they've been moving foreclosure without evidence. And people ain't demanding the production of it. So now so of course now when they get it, you remove your signature, now they got all this derivative debt hanging out there, and that's theirs, not yours.
Right.
But meanwhile, you're asking for all the residuals that have been generated all this time on the stock market, because it certainly was a surety. Now you go look up United States law, securitization is unlawful. You see the point? Now we'll get into what securitization is, later. We went into it last week, but as far as law concerning that, you understand? You can do the research yourself. So I'm just telling you it's unlawful. And see, you never argue this, and logically, if you get a barrister, they're not going to argue because they're part of the problem. Mr. Sloan and Alia are dismissed from and removed from trusteeship based upon Mr. Sloan's questionable accounting practices and misrepresentations. So now you just attacked the conversion, haven't you? Right? And since you're the beneficiary of the estate, don't you have a right to tell the trustee he's damn fired?
That's right.
But in mine, I put an heir, though, when it says beneficiary.
Yeah, well, beneficiary and heir. Yeah. Are we clear? That's why I told you, bring your glass to us. I'm gonna bring it. Anyway, so whatever processes questionable used by Mr. Sloan appear to demonstrate an intent to defraud James Warren Bey, the beneficiary of the assets. So you're claiming the assets, aren't you? Huh? You're not abandoning the assets, are you?
No. No.
Are you? So now, keep in mind, for them to move this procedure, they must to have, after this. They must to have whoever entered for the writ of execution. Now the writ of execution and writ of possession are related. So the writ of execution is for them to execute, to tell you to split. And then them being the trustee, saying that they're stuck with this, they're with a possession, because they're the holder in due course. We already showed that they can't be.
That's right.
But if you don't argue, it's assumed that that's the case. Are we clear?
That's right.
All right. Now, so, Mr. Sloan's undisclosed accounting records, evidenced by virtue of this present action, we're talking about the present action, right? Are alleged to be showing transactions associated with my estate. So you're claiming your estate, right? See? Not my address and not my estate. The same has not been disclosed to me. So non-disclosure, the court can't move. Because you put it to question. It's a question before the court. You can't be moving on something that's not disclosed. See, but if you argue debt and stuff like that, it's assumed that it's already been disclosed to you. If you accept the debt, start saying my, then it must be your stuff. So see how they be getting over? So the present action are alleged to be showing transactions associated with my estate, and the same has not been disclosed to me, James Warren Bey, the beneficiary. Furthermore, the questionable non-responses to formally issued written requests from the desk of James Warren Bey clearly constitutes undisputable severe breach of trust, evidenced by Mr. Sloan's silence and by the following untoward acts deemed to initiate the said foreclosure action against my interest and against my estate. So you're talking like a beneficiary and an heir, like you're supposed to be talking. And so now you're telling the trustee, the broker, that he's fired. Up to that point, he's acting on his behalf, on your behalf. Do you understand? Now, I, James Warren Bey, the living sentient man, hereby repudiates and rebuts all unwarranted hypothecation activities alleged against my estate and refute all or any abandonment claims made by the foreign and misrepresented persons doing business as Wells Fargo Bank at Alia. I do therefore publicly and privately proclaim and declare my divine and natural rights to my corporal and incorporeal hereditaments and affirm notice and claim reversion to my estate. I also claim all rights to any profits or benefits generated by the surety instruments upon which my signature was placed and thereafter used by Mr. Sloan at Alia and deemed for profit in violation of the laws that govern securitization. Are we clear? Clear. I, James Warren Bey, the living sentient man and rightful heir of the estate in question, am not lost at sea, and I affirm and declare my right of reversion of estate, and therefore I make no claim with respect to the title and misrepresented capitalized name, Man of Straw and Nom De Guerre being a title, and the spurious creations of the foreign de facto Wells Fargo Bank et alia operators, actors, and owners. I surrender and assign any and all reversionary interests to the foreign privately owned United States and its subsidiaries for full quittance, discharge, settlement, and closure of my reliance upon the rule of law set at Title 12, United States Code 95A, Part 2. This is where the debt goes to them. That's already established law. I assume no liabilities or debts, however contrived, among Wells Fargo Bank administrators, corporate associates, and I do not consent to stand as surety, quote unquote, for the foreign private and for-profit Wells Fargo Bank and alia. I did not and do not agree to stand as surety for Wells Fargo Bank owners or administrators, nor for its subsidiaries or its associates at any point or moment in time. That's your reversionary statement, Dean.
All right, all right.
Word is slightly different because it's still just the United States is dealing with directly with Wells Fargo also,
All right.
which is a subsidiary. Because remember, all corporate entities in the Western Hemisphere are members of the Roman Curia. All right, the present foreclosure action demonstrates that Mr. Sloan's accounting records were apparently accepted by another third party as being proper and valid by some man or woman or clerk having association to or with the court record. It appears that the said questionable evidence was apparently, by virtue of its implied accountability correctness, used as grounds for initiating the said foreclosure activities related to a failure to examine misrepresentation of the debt, quote unquote, owing as alleged by Mr. Sloan and associated with or tagged to James Warren Bay's private beneficiary right of estate. Are we clear? James Warren Bay, a living, breathing, and sentient man, and this be for the women if you're making an argument for yourself, and the true creditor in the estate matter, inclusive of the property designated as 11 Delancey Place, was established by virtue of the apparent misusage of my signature upon the promissory note and assets being used without my permission or authorization, and with the same being deceptively used by others to create a surety and traded as a fungible instrument. James Warren Bay, as written and as presented by myself, is to be distinguished from all and any Nom De Guerre, all capitalized names, or by any other grammatical or semantic conversions, such as James Warren, all capital letters, etc., or via any other misnomers or misrepresentations implied, written, or otherwise presented by agents or representatives of or for Wells Fargo Bank Corporation et alia, without my knowledge and without my willful authorization. The note or securitized instrument in question and undoubtedly appear to have been used by Mr. Sloan et alia, or by delegated corporate succession, others doing business via their entity, Wells Fargo Bank Corporation et alia, for effectuating fungible transactions, or with the note, quote unquote, possibly deemed for empowering or monetizing fraudulent transactions made by anyone or by someone associated with Wells Fargo Bank Corporation et alia, via that entity's administrators and their accounting practices, and or by some other dishonest contractual for-profit associated activities. No profits and no monies or funds associated with or generated by the undisclosed usages of the promissory note bearing my James Warren signature in this case has ever been forwarded to me. Some undisclosed party or person suspected to be, or who have alleged to have been authorized by Mr. Sloan doing business as Wells Fargo Bank Corporation et alia, initiated the misrepresented foreclosure claims against my estate. By due process under the law, some identifiable living and sentient man or woman had to produce verifiable evidence justifying the action, quote unquote, in this controversy. Therefore, the person or persons alleging, that's what we to have. So, alleging to have or to possess documented claims of power of attorney over myself, James Warren Bey, or over my estate are hereby challenged to produce the original accounting records and the never separated original mortgage and promissory note. See these principles?
Yeah.
With this said established evidence, the claimant, accuser, trustee is commanded to produce the documented proof of power of attorney to support his or her claims of right to have initiated the said foreclosure action in controversy. For the record, I, James Warren Bey, maintain my right to question the alleged fiduciary of James Warren estate, and the same standards shall apply to any and all third-party accusers and claimants in the matter. I affirm my right as beneficiary to rebut the apparent misrepresentations in this present culpable claim and the apparent conversion actions associated with it. The appellant, James Warren Bey, the rightful steward and beneficiary, domiciling at 11 Delancey Place near Downingtown, Pennsylvania, Commonwealth, rebuts the misrepresentations in this foreclosure matter and brings notice, quote unquote, of the same to the attention of the administrators of the appellate court. Primal to this notice, quote unquote, is the questionable accounting procedures and practices entertained by the owners, the agents, and the representatives of Wells Fargo Bank Incorporated at Alia, and of their associated contractors doing business on the land at North America in a corporate capacity. The corporate owners, agents, and representatives collectively referred to as Mr. Sloan, acting for the Wells Fargo Bank Corporation entity in Alia, have conjoined to themselves third-party interlopers, quote unquote, and debt collection agents. These third-party interlopers, agents, and or representatives, or other veiled or undisclosed claimants, owners, operators, and or administrators were and are equally principal and agent questioned to prove his, her, their claims against my estate. The appellant demands that the claimants, quote unquote, prove the alleged debt, quote unquote, owed to the alleged man or woman or the unnamed person, representatives claiming to be the original grantor of monies or funds in this matter, and to show clear proof that the same substance, consideration, monies or funds were at any point or time delivered into the hands and placed in the possession of the appellant James Warren Bey. Furthermore, the said accusers, alleged grantors bear the burden of proof and are charged to produce the accounting ledgers, records, original instruments that prove the alleged debt owing and associated to or with James Warren Bey and his assets or estates. The appellant, James Warren Bey, in chief, by right of due process, secured under constitutional law, and the beneficiary questions the activities associated with all and any allegations or claims made against me by any man or woman associated with or levied against the said assets and estates. In this appellate instance, the said assets includes 11 Delancey Place near Downingtown, Pennsylvania, Commonwealth. The appellant, James Warren Bey, for the record, challenges the veracity of the claims and challenges the jurisdiction of the lien note alleged to be founded upon the so-called loan of monies or funds which the alleged grantor has said or implied to have been delivered into the possession of the appellant, James Warren Bey, at any point or time, and with the same verified to be attached to or related to a transfer of the said monies or funds from the alleged grantors or lenders and given to the appellant, James Warren Bey. This challenge is made non-pro-tonque on all accounts and in all matters concerning the said grant or loan, quote unquote, and to the alleged holders of the original instruments bearing my, James Warren Bey's, verifiable wet ink signature and concurrent to July 2nd of the year 2007. The accusers, the alleged grantors, Mr. Sloan and Alia, via their associated entity, Wells Fargo Bank Incorporated, and the other conjoined claimants, owners, agents, and representatives of and for the entity styled World Savings Bank Incorporated, lack standing to exercise enforcement warrants, obstructing injunctive relief, while the controversy, subject matter, and foreclosure action initiated by them is at question and on appeal by the appellant James Warren Bey. The original and actual deed and note alleged to have been placed into evidence before the courts related to and associated with 11 Delancey Place near Downingtown, Pennsylvania, Commonwealth, at North America, and recorded at, and of course the numbers go into there, whatever the case, etc. Of the year 2007 are common to this action. Allegations and or assumptions to this effect are challenged for the record, since these associated facts or assumptions are of primal evidence for proof and veracity, establishing and verifying the facts or the falsehoods associated with or to this allegation and foreclosure action, quote unquote. The facts and the evidence alleged to have been secured by the owners and representatives of Wells Fargo Bank Incorporated at Alia, being evidence, shall be used for examining the positions of the parties in controversy and to establish verification of the alleged debt, and of course, in this case, set for the record a clarification of the status of the parties, creditor and or debtor, in this controversy. Then you sign off. Now, do you recognize it? The locked doors? And of course, air interjected more often, what you've done.
But I did a writ of possession, reversioner, estoppel. That's what I titled it, you know. And then I did the international document, you know, with A-1 truth, international document, AA 222141. Then I put the USPS return receipt underneath that, so that, you know, that I've established a docket now, you know.
All right. Yeah. So you give me that, and I'll modify.
Yes, sir.
All right. So anyway, so you see the nature of this estoppel and rebuttal is with the knowledge of how the system works. Are we clear? So once you understand that this, and I'm going to reiterate so that you don't ask no questions because you're late.
I apologize.
Brother, what does that mean? What does peanut butter sandwiches mean on jelly?
I already know it's coming.
I was using the library free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
For your August 18th. That's why I'm late.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, brother.
Anyway, so keep this in mind, you all. Whenever these, I want to state this, and then we'll just talk. Let's just talk. These mortgages and deeds did not exist prior to 1913. Are we clear? Please say it. So get to the clear. Say it, please.
Clear.
Mortgages and deeds at North America did not exist prior to 1913. Are you clear?
Clear.
All right. Prior to 1913, all property was held by a allodial title. This is also called aboriginal title. So write them down so you get used to these things so that you can understand what your arguments are, not what Europeans argue. Are we clear?
Clear.
Are we clear? The Europeans have been forced to tell the truth, so pay attention to what they're saying, but keep it a grain of salt. They're foreigners, you're not. Are we clear? You got to always keep that in your mind. You're not rejecting them, you're putting things in their proper place. Do you understand? Just because the European's been occupying your land and controlling your assets, he's not the owner of those assets.
Right.
Are we clear?
Clear.
But they've been moving mortgages and deeds around as if they are the owners. The real owners are the Al-Moroccans, the descendants of Moroccans born in America. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Clear.
North America is the heartland of the Moroccan Empire. Are we clear? This is what Obama was exposing. This is also why when he went to Egypt, he showed the true American flag. And then he came back and they signed the rights of indigenous people. But you already know the corruption that exists on our side and why these things have not been promoted. Because a lot of our own people have been benefiting from the enslavement of their own people. So they're going to try to keep that black thing going. Because the Europeans give them a 501c3 skull and bones payback. Are we clear? Dr. Nyla? No, but I want you to mic.
Question popped up, so I'm just.
Go ahead.
It says, could you ask Brother Taj, has he heard of the brother/G's in Temple number 14 VA territory that has started a credit union for Moors, and what his thoughts about it?
No. I don't have details, and until I do details on anything, I make no statements on things I don't research.
Islam.
But the principle is a good idea, certainly. But at the same time, they're still dealing with the private Federal Reserve notes until there's some change over to Asiatic jurisdiction. We're still subject to the same BS. However, having more control over your assets is of interest, and I would like to do some research on that, yes. But the principle is a good idea.
Islam.
Are we clear?
Islam.
Now, and you keep this in mind, what they have done that's unlawful, all right? All banks and all so-called lending institutions, they have violated the law from the door because they've separated these. Are we clear?
Clear.
Why did they separate them? They separated them in order to take the promissory note with your signature on it and make it a surety. And then they assured your future labor and the taxing that they would steal from you as the payments to the alleged debt, and then switch you on the debtor side while keeping your promissory note as an asset on their books and generating finance. Are we clear?
Clear.
At the point that the promissory note became an asset, that's called monetization. Write that down. And understand at that point, it's total fraud. Are we clear?
Clear.
So we're not talking amounts, we're talking principle, aren't we? Monetization. Suretization, securitization, and making a surety out of the promissory note, making it a fungible instrument, putting it on the stock market is called monetization. That's unlawful. But in doing so, now I'll make this very, very, very clear to you. In doing that, note that your signature was on became the funding source. They gave you nothing.
Right. Never gave you nothing.
They simply took a trusteeship or forfeitureship on your estate and future labors and deal with administrating and setting off or discharging the debt on your behalf as a trustee. This is why they want your signature, and this is why they want you to keep communicating with them. Are we clear? Now, on another point for your interest. One of the reasons why we always tell Moors to set up a trust, reason why we tell you that. Now, when Noble set up the old Canaanite temple, it in its nature is a trust. Do you understand? And he told the Moors to help him in the great missionary work enforcing the Constitution. That is no different than what has been going on with the claims he made to the Queen of England, etc. And of course, what crashed the United States Corporation Company that most people who don't understand think is a country, which makes them incompetent. Are we clear? Now, when we're talking about the great sellout, This is where people who are charged to help enforce the Constitution in harmony with the instructions of the Prophet started telling people to draw they didn't teach civics, and that their organization is only religious. That's a sellout. And so now what you have Moorish Americans suffering the black codes, and the Europeans are still on their properties, when being nationals, they actually are making a claim on the estate and don't even know what reversion of estate is, because people who claim to be Sheiks and Grand Sheiks of the Moorish Science Temple of America have sold the Prophet out and thus sold you out.
That's wrong.
Now, don't take it personal, it's just what it is. This is reality.
That's what it is.
Because these things should have been known by you since the 20s. Meaning that we shouldn't have to be, in this late date, teaching you these things that should have already been every elementary to you. And so the lack of understanding this has allowed the Europeans to be expunging your estates since the 20s. And this is why Franklin Delano Roosevelt, after that third United States corporation was crashed, why he started using the birth certificates as surety bonds. They're bank bonds. You know, I mean, y'all know that, but I'm just telling you, you need to understand the politics. But all of those politics are unum sanctum. Are we clear? All of that politics, from the coup d'etat in 1861 when the Congress adjourned sine die, on up to the Woodrow Wilson thing, on up to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, all of them is the same policy. Are we clear? And so now that people are waking up, that's why they're starting to do all these militarization of the gangs of New York that are called policemen, busting people's houses, take their children, do all kinds of stuff, no warrant. This is what it is, they're on the last leg. Are we clear?
I have a question about a related, a question of a related issue that happened with the unum sanctum policy being done on the late, he was the president of Libya, Gaddafi. He was converting the national thing into gold, and he was going to bankrupt.
All right. Now, Gaddafi was, they had actually was setting up a satellite so that the African countries and peoples would not be subject to Google and the Facebook, because they both belong to CIA, which you already know. And designed to actually subvert the Constitution and also maintain the status quo, i.e. the abuse of our people under the guise of being legitimate. So he was, he had funded for satellite to bypass the European and Roman operations, and also to move from what is known as the petrodollar that was set up by Nixon, etc. That forces everybody to buy any energy in US dollars in the treasury bonds, because you already know the shells that were broken before, which we talked about earlier. And I forget the exact amount, but it has to do with a couple, maybe 300 and some odd more tons of gold that they were stealing from him. Because remember, the gold, if you do any research in world politics, it was a London trader, he's called the Whale, or something like that, the Whale, in London was one of the traders. They misused Chinese gold to back the euro, right? And they said he lost a couple billion, but it was multiples. It was really in the multiples. So China, the Chinese Manchurians were commanding the restoration of the gold into the accounts. So in the back line of politics, a lot of the finance gold was being moved from the Vatican, trying to satisfy that to keep things kind of cool. Now keep in mind, Germany is the United States Corporation Operators' #1 ally. And so Germany sent their diplomats over to check on their gold in New York. they told them to take a hike. Of course, they had been melting gold and they've been putting tungsten in the gold for quite some time. And of course, they already raided Fort Knox. They got sarin gas and a whole bunch of nerve gas in Fort Knox. So the scam is coming unraveled. So one of the other missions was to steal Gaddafi's gold. This is also why the French went into Mali, etc., and gold mines and stealing. So all of that stuff is connected. But the major issue is not just the gold-backed currency for African countries. See, because the African and Asiatic countries have the resources anyway. They're under European control, under unum sanctum control. So that's why they assassinated him. That must be understood, to steal the gold. Now, so they were, as of late, delivering some of the gold back to Germany, but without the markings. So it's remelted or smelted gold. And so that's again why a lot of the corporate operations of Germany in Russia and some parts of China have not ceased, but actually increased. Now, so in the background, this is also why the trading hubs around the world are being adjusted, whereas the Jesuits control the financial side of operations on the Unum Sanctum. The Asiatic nations control the trade side. So this is the foundation of the real politics that's going on in the world today. And then also, you know, China wrote a scathing complaint to the world governments about the United States operators, how they've been treating us here. So that hasn't been going over too well with them. So we're talking about real politics. So remember, the real goal of Gaddafi is to steal the gold, to satisfy some of the gold that they stole from Germany. That's why after German diplomats came to New York to check on their gold, 2 months later the buildings dropped and they said that Muslims did with box cutters, which is a total lie. And then put people against each other and start all these wars. So, you know, that's really what's going on. So keep in mind, with Gaddafi, it is the satellite and the gold. Yes, that's it.
And the oil.
Is that,
Yeah, well, that too.
The oil.
Yes, but remember,
It's
that-
amazing what he did for us.
say it again,
I was gonna say, and what about Saddam?
same thing.
Because, you know, they took their currency and then created this
The dinar and all
dinar.
that stuff.
And they got a lot of the American soldiers, they built them up that there was gonna be this
You gotta
reset.
remember this.
Yeah.
Now, this is what occurred. Because the Europeans have been stealing the gold in different parts of Africa. That was a setup. That was a setup and a promise. So what they did, they set that up, promise, then they drained all the accounts. And now, so anybody that's buying the dinar and stuff is buying shells. It was already raped under the
I had
Clinton
some.
administration.
I had 1 million.
You know what I'm saying? It was already raped under the Clinton administration. You know, our people need to really learn world politics.
What?
And this is again why we talk
Dinars.
some of these things, because our people are very unsophisticated when it comes to real world politics. They think tunnel vision. You know, and so this is why it's important for them to understand that the entire contemporary world politics is based in unum sanctum, not racism and prejudice. When somebody starts talking racism and prejudice to you, that's a COINTELPRO. A social engineer recognizes it, politician recognizes it. Common people who can't read or don't know history think these people are doing them a favor. No, they got you on a treadmill. And if you move the camera back, you see the screen going like this. You're in the struggle though. That's how it works. Go ahead. Go ahead, Brian.
now I was just gonna ask, was that letter from the Chinese to the world leaders, was that on the drive or is that somewhere where we could?
No, it was
get
a general scathing report against the United States Corporation Company for their treatment of us.
Okay, well, where can we get that?
Just look on the internet. Just look up Chinese scathing report against the U.S. Something like that, and you'll see it. But that's really no big deal. What you need to do and what we need to understand is that we need to get together.
Islam.
Islam.
We need to stop looking for other people to do programs for us.
Islam.
Are we clear?
Islam.
We need to understand what's going on and start using our intelligence and come together in law on the proper platform. See, because the whole politics is this. Unum sanctum policy is the conquest of the Moorish nation, period. When you say the Moorish nation, you're talking about all Asiatic African peoples. Are we clear? When you talk about Moorish Americans, you're talking about specifically the Moors of the Western Hemisphere that are under direct occupation by European operations. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Clear.
And all of their policies are made based on the Unum Sanctum doctrine. All right? So if you're talking the Christian Black Codes of 1724, it's Unum Sanctum. If you're talking the Sister QV Act of 1666, Unum Sanctum. If you're talking about the principles behind the Dred Scott issue, Unum Sanctum. You're talking about the assassination of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Unum Sanctum. Wow. You're talking about the rejection of Ralph Bunche before the United Nations, Unum Sanctum. If you're talking about the Buck Act, Unum Sanctum. You're talking about the Negro Act, Unum Sanctum. You're talking about the Federal Reserve Establishment, Unum Sanctum. You're talking about the IRS, which is really Inquisition Revenue Services, Unum Sanctum. If you don't know that and if you don't get it, understand that you're behind the curve. You know, and so if we're going to solve things, we're going to have to grow up, get rid of our emotionalism, uncomfortably dump our beliefs and start dealing with facts, and get in harmony with the real world and be prepared to rise to higher planes of life. And a lot of these issues we talk about now are really just preliminary, really, truthfully, because as soon as you get these things down, you're going to be accelerated right quickly. If it's not by myself or somebody like me, it will be others who will be bringing higher degrees to you. But really all I am actually is an agitator. I'm a cleanup observer. Meaning that my job is to clean up some of the basic things so you can get other stuff that you're getting ready to get smacked with heavily. And if you're not able to handle them, you will probably not survive. And that's real politics. And I'm not saying to scare you because I'm saying it because it's absolutely the truth. And it's not because I'm saying it. You got to understand this. I'm just doing my job. That's what my mother sent me for.
Islam.
You know, so if we don't clean up this first part, you'll probably not be able to handle the accelerations that's getting ready to take place. That's actually already in play. You know, now people who would benefit from your dispersed estate logically don't want you listening to this kind of information. Because one of the first things this information does, it will destroy any institutions that's not founded in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will collapse. And not because I say so, because divine law says so.
Islam.
And you don't have to believe what I say. Observe what I told you and look around you. But it's accelerating, so I don't have to prove anything to you. I say this, accept nothing I say, observe what I told you, and see if it doesn't take place just like I told you. Because it absolutely will. But then, other things that you don't know at this time, but that are and is, will simply be like somebody pulling the gauze off your eyes. Because all of it's about seeing, awareness, and actually vibrations. Actually, to be honest with you. You know, but it's sort of like, in another way, there's no need to argue with someone about, you know, running the cash register when you know they can't count. But don't get impressed with the fact that we're learning to count like this is some grand achievement. This is only cleaning up some mess to prepare you for other stuff. So don't think like some of these subject matters we're talking about is the goal in a sense. These are things that you should have had 30, 40 years ago, that should have prepared you 30, 40 years ago, that should have prepared you for other things that was in front of your face that you didn't see because you didn't have foundation. So don't think when you begin to understand that this is it. Because all of this is done to take the to grease the gears of your willpower. Because it's really the willpower that I'm attacking. Because if that is activated, Mother Nature takes care of the rest.
Islam.
You know, it's sort of like if you understand nature and you're a farmer, you don't sit around and judge stuff. You go to the soil, look at the soil, see whether it's acidic or alkaline. You clean it from rocks and weeds, and you put the seed in the soil, and you don't stand there patting your feet. Man, I don't see no leaves yet. You plant the seed in a good soil, the moon and Venus and the sun will do their job. Go find something to do. It's sort of saying things like somebody paint the wall on. What you stand there patting your feet for? I'm waiting for this paint to dry. You know, just paint the wall and go find something to do. Likewise, some of this information, a lot of things that we've been talking about, is to clear your head about things that have been dragging you down. That's been dragging your thoughts, draining your energy. If I can pull enough leeches off you, and I can't pull them all up, if I can pull enough leeches off of you, you will retain enough blood energy that nature does the rest. And that's what I count on. Are we clear? So I'm telling you ahead. So I'm not telling you anything loaded. I give you no loaded questions, and I give you no loaded statements. I tell you bluntly. But I also try to give you reference points so that you can start using your own brain power. Because you will discover these things that I'm telling you, you already know. That's number one. You've just been suppressed here because Rome, see the problem with the planet is that people have been boasting and bragging about their special relationships with Allah, Jesus, God, Muhammad, Yahweh, Jehovah, etc. But in the real world, Rome has been their God. They fear Rome. They don't fear Allah. They don't fear no Jesus. They fear Rome. They call him their great white father. They won't buy, they won't sell, they won't breathe without the mark or the number of his name or license. So my job is to cut Rome's tail off. That's all.
Islam.
He might devour me, I don't care. My mom will give me another body.
Islam.
Do you understand?
Islam.
But I already know if you cripple the dragon, the next generation, the job is not as hard. Once they clear themselves of the misinformation. See, because they don't know their power is in divine will. It's not in weaponry. It's not in marching all around. It's in the will. The willpower is sluggish. So what we do is cleansers. We're just cleaning a little bit. Because if you clean it enough that they can see on their own, they don't need you. Because your mother brought you here with everything you need. You just that we've got caught up in Roman dogmata, belief systems that we associated with Allah, Jesus, and Muhammad that actually have nothing to do with them whatsoever. But we've charged them with bringing this BS that we've been calling religion, when actually they were rescuing the people from this dogma. And Rome has actually used their names to actually conquer the people. That's why they always say, in the name of Jesus, in the name of Allah, in the name of, 90% of the time they were the enemies of the prophets. And you're the target, you're the food, and they generate finance from you. See, because birthright doesn't cost a penny. That's why Yahshua was arguing with the priesthood who was stealing the widow's pennies. And then the same priesthood comes to tell people, Jesus is broke. His roof is leaking. Let me get myself together. And, he's